right, everyone, welcome to day 17 of the 28-day Get Hired Challenge. We're going to dig into some really, maybe you'll find this cool, maybe it's going to seem tedious, but we are starting to really get into the job search now because starting today, we're digging into mastering your resume. All right, everyone, welcome to day 17 of the 28-day Get Hired Challenge. I'm Alyssa Miller, and today we're talking about your resume. Your resume, in many, many cases, when you're applying to the job, that is the first impression that hiring manager, that HR team, the recruiter, it's their first impression of you. It is your first opportunity to make yourself stand out, to sell yourself, to tell them why you are the person that they need to hire for that position. Your resume is one of the most crucial elements in getting hired into any position, whether it's cybersecurity or just about any industry. So it's important that we dig into this. Now, we have been building up to this all the way along, right? We're on day 17. The first 16 days, which represented the first 5 chapters of the book, they were all the background information, understanding the industry, understanding yourself, understanding the challenges you face, getting into the industry, all of that. Now we're really digging into the heart of the job search starting today. So let's talk about that resume. I talked about how critically important it is, and hopefully most of you understand how critically important that is. What I don't think people always understand is how to maximize their resume. Because I see lots of people who will just take a resume, they write up their resume, it's got all their stuff on it, and they do what I call spray and pray, right? Send it to as many jobs as you can and hope that some of them like it and call you back. Well, that's great. But understand what you're doing now. You're putting it entirely in the hands of the person who gets your resume to decide if they like you or not. Is that the way you want to sell yourself? No, you're hoping that they'll take notice. You're taking a flyer. The reality is your resume needs to be tailored to each job. It will make you stand out in the automated systems. It will make you stand out to the recruiter. And it's how you sell yourself to the hiring manager in that very first step. Again, you're trying to get yourself noticed. You don't want to just say, well, here I am, this is what I am, take it or leave it kind of approach. No, you want to be out there telling them this is why you need to hire me. And it starts with tailoring your resume. So the reason that this is important, and the reason everything I'm about to tell you is important, all begins with this idea. I talked about it a couple weeks, 2 weeks ago, I think now, the ATS, the applicant tracking system. That's that automated system that you're throwing your resume into and you're filling out a bunch of fields. Maybe it parses your resume and tries to fill it in for you. All of that stuff goes into an automated system. And that system is the very first step. It's going to read your resume, try to format it potentially, and then it's going to try to interpret it. And it's going to see how you match up to the job description. And it will score you. What you don't see on the back end is that that system is actually looking at every candidate and making certain decisions. Now, it may not throw you out of the pool or pass you along, but it's scoring in many cases. It's providing a ranking. And so, of course, you want to rank higher. So we need to talk about, when we talk about your resume, we need to talk about not only the hiring manager and the recruiter, but how do you just get past that ATS? Because indeed, that is the hardest step, is getting the recruiter to call you. Once the recruiter calls you, now you have a chance to shine. You can talk to them, tell them how great you are, whatever. Then hopefully that all goes well and you get to talk to the hiring manager. But it's the step leading up to getting that first call, that first screening call from the recruiter, that is the hardest. So let's start with format. The format of your resume matters. Okay? I said before, the applicant tracking system is going to try to parse it. And it's going to try to fill in things. And it's going to try to interpret it. So it's important that the format that you upload, whether it's in PDF or Word document or Google Doc or whatever you use, is critical. Because there are certain elements that will make it easier. Now, I know in traditional lights, it was always said, create a resume that makes you stand out. So throw all sorts of stuff on it, make it look all pretty. Maybe if you really want to do that still, maybe have 2 copies of your resume. One that you're going to hand to real people and one that you're going to put in the applicant tracking system. But for what you're going to put into the applicant tracking system, let me tell you, in most cases, that's the only one the hiring manager is ever going to see anyway. So, first and foremost, you want a simple format. Single column. Keep it straightforward. Don't, try to do really cool gutters on one side with information and whatever. No, keep it simple, a single column of text, a standard document. Because that's what's going to be the easiest for the ATS to parse. Now, could it parse something else? Maybe, but why take the chance? Second, skip the graphics. They add nothing for the ATS, and they just, again, add potential conflict where the ATS might not be able to properly parse or interpret your resume. Use common and simple fonts, the basics, the typical ones, Calibri, Arial, Times New Roman. Some people will tell you use a sans serif font. That's not as necessary. In most cases, these automated systems can deal with serifs and non-serifs just alike. But make sure you use a simple font. Don't use something crazy. God, please don't use, Wingdings or cartoonish or whatever any of the crazy ones are. Keep it simple. Have a standard header. Simple header that has your contact information in it. Your name, your contact information. And then finally, use standard sections and section headings. So think about the things you usually have to enter on a resume. Skills, work history, education history, certifications, contacts, references. Those things that you normally see in an application that you would have to fill in, make those the sections of your resume and put section headings on it that make it easy to identify. So that's the start. But I said you need to tailor your resume, right? That sounds like something you would do for every resume, and indeed you do. But let's talk about how you tailor your resume, because you want your resume to do one thing more than anything else. You want it to check as many boxes of that job description as you can. Now, we're going to talk about in, I think, 2 episodes from now, actually it might be the next episode, we're going to talk about how you choose and apply to jobs. And we're going to talk about the fact you don't have to check every box. You don't even have to check the majority. But understand that the more boxes you can check, the better. And by boxes checked, I mean all the different requirements that they say you need for a job. You want to be able to demonstrate that you can connect with all of those. And that begins with key words. As you look through the job description, what you're looking to do is pull out keywords. What are the key technologies, skills, things like that that are mentioned in there? And you want to make certain that you can apply those words, use those terms, or variants of those terms. That's even better if you can get it in there multiple times, in areas where you describe your skills. Now, I'm not telling you to lie. I'm also not telling you some of the bad advice that was out there. People would tell you to put it in white font in the white space at the bottom and think that that was going to fool the ATS. No, they're smart enough for that. But wherever you can fit that terminology into the description of the work that you've done, or you can highlight work that maybe you wouldn't have highlighted for another job. This one is talking about something that, yeah, you know what, I did this or that. Include those. So let's look at what that looks like for a minute. I'm going to show you here. Here's 4 quick requirements that I pulled out of different job descriptions. Now, this table appears in the book as well. You see that first one, strong knowledge of vulnerability management practices and tools. Well, if you look at most of the words, they don't describe anything, right? Strong working knowledge, well, that tells you that they want knowledge. But that's not something you need to put on your resume. Practices and tools doesn't really help. What's the key word there, or the key phrase in this case? It's vulnerability management. So to demonstrate that you have a working knowledge of vulnerability management, how can you talk about vulnerability management as you describe your skills or your job responsibilities in your resume? The next one's the same thing. Look at this long list of knowledge of provisioning, designing, constructing, and maintaining basic Azure compute instances. The key word there is Azure. They want to, look at that. They're asking, do you know Azure, right? They're talking about all different ways that you can use an Azure cloud. So the key word here is Azure. How can you talk about Azure? And then what would be something that might be a derivative word from that? An alternative word might talk about cloud. You might bring that in because clearly cloud is important to them if they're talking about Azure. The next one, you see regulatory and compliance mandates such as ITAR, PCI, and HIPAA. Okay, great. So that's pretty straightforward. If you can mention that you know ITAR, PCI, or HIPAA, you could also say maybe compliance or regulations might be words that you want to include there. Maybe if you can't speak to ITAR, PCI, or HIPAA, maybe you include a different one that you do have, a different regulation you do have experience with as kind of a last resort. But use the word then regulation, regulatory, compliance. Those are great words. You're looking for these keywords. And then the last one, here's another one. Now this is a case where you have not only a concept or a skill, but you also have some specific technologies. So it says working with SOAR. Okay, so we're talking about security operations, automation, and response, right? So that's a thing that you're going to want to focus on. Can you talk about SOAR concepts? Even if you didn't work in an environment that used SOAR, can you talk about, use that term, SOAR concepts? Can you talk about anything, any relation, knowledge or skills or whatever that you have with Demisto or Splunk or Swimlane? These are all technologies. So what you're looking for is you're trying to find ways to pick out those keywords, right? And you want to be able to include them at least once, but honestly, if you can, formulate different ways to include variants of those words, even better, synonyms and whatnot, okay? Or if you include the same technology phrase multiple times. Again, don't make it unnatural, because after you get past the ATS, someone is actually going to read that. And if it sounds like nonsense or gibberish or like you're just name dropping, that doesn't work. But where you can credibly and legitimately tie that in, you want to tie in those keywords. All right, so there we go. I want to hear from you in the comments so I can give away a book today. Tell me, what is one strategy that you use when you look at how you're going to tailor your resume to a job that you're applying to? And if you've never tailored your resume to a job before, tell us that too. It's okay. Again, nobody's judging. We're all here to learn. We're all here to share. So tell me how that's been for you. Last reminder, once again, Manning Publications giving away 35% off all their titles this month. So go to their website, manning.com, enter the discount code or follow the link or use that QR code. It'll take you right there. And I'm going to keep coming back every day. We're on day 17. We still got a few days to go. I'm still trying to help you get hired in cybersecurity. So come back. I'll see you again tomorrow.